Yuval David joining us from DC, filmmaker and activist. Hey, Yuval.
How should society respond to ex-criminals?
So let's get to it. How should society respond to ex-criminals? So Yuval, please take the lead.
This is a very complicated situation because, first of all, in this specific case, the victims were not notified about Kastiel being released until they found about it in the news. According to Israeli law, and the same thing is in the United States, the victims are supposed to be notified in this case. So his already shortened sentence was shortened once again by these 9 months, significant 9 months. And it says a direct message to rapists out there and to their victims, showing how much the country and the system is actually taking care of the victims.
Real punishment is not just being behind bars, right? So the punishment does not end, it continues in a different capacity.
The punishment of being behind bars is something very different than being under house arrest or having a curfew so he can go out and do what he wants to do during the day, but at night he has to be home at a certain time. One of the things that the state and that the judicial system should have shared is what are the ramifications of his crimes and what does he have to do now? So if he was rehabilitated, what does that mean? People need to know that. Victims need to know that. And the people who have not yet spoken up about their own victimhood, about being raped, who are afraid to talk about it, once again are pushed deeper into that deep, dark abyss or that closet, afraid to talk about it because now a rapist is out there. So what we need to know and what we need to talk about is what happens to him afterwards. What is the continued rehabilitation of a criminal who committed awful, awful crimes that have affected the lives of other people?
What is the incentive of an inmate to maintain proper behavior? This glimmer of hope that his sentence would be reduced. So by saying that this is not acceptable, we're essentially nixing to an extent the basic notion of jail, no?
Yeah, one of the things that people talk about is they compare one sentencing of a specific crime to a sentencing of a different crime. And this is what becomes very complicated within the judicial system. Because what happens within the court case, what the defense and the prosecution and their own battles in court are trying to fight for, plus the judge, the jury, all of this system makes this a very complicated topic. Because, for example, in a lot of the outrage that's happening currently in Israel, and the same outrage that happens when a rapist is released early or is given a shorter sentence, they say, well, what about a murderer? What about a thief? What about a drug dealer? And in this situation, we do have to follow the law. If we say this is their punishment and then they become released, well, like Gerard just said, it's all about the rehabilitation. People need to know what the rehabilitation is and that all of a sudden life isn't just fine and dandy. You have to live with your crimes. You have to live with the fact knowing that you committed these horrible crimes.
The punishment has nothing to do with the poor treatment of the victims, of those who come to even complain on sexual assault, and maybe focusing on the offender and the very legitimate desire for vengeance is a deflection from dealing with the justice system and its wrongdoings when it comes again to those who complain and victims of sexual assault, the high percentage of cases being closed, etc., etc.
What was done for the victims in this case, in this specific case, Kastiel was ordered to compensate each of the women he was convicted of assaulting with sums ranging from 15,000 shekels to 50,000 shekels. Is that enough for a victim to say, okay, here's some cash, now good luck to you? Absolutely. We need to focus on the victims, helping them become resilient survivors and whatever we can do to help them. Too much of the focus is on him. Now, on the other hand, we also need to put that focus on him to ensure that other men don't go out and feel that, oh, this is fine. They can go and rape women and drug women, and the worst that will happen is a short sentence.
Again, no sympathy for him or for his horrific crimes, that's for sure. But aren't we giving up the notion of remorse, of redemption, if we stop to believe in the very basic notion that every single morning we all wake up, we can be better humans.
Yeah, absolutely. In the United States and in Israel, there are rehabilitation programs, and those should be spoken about more often, so people understand what the system provides for people, how to rehabilitate somebody. There are criminals. There have always been criminals throughout human history and throughout human nature. What do we do to help them? So I think one of the things that should have also been released are the information that should have been released, rather, are mandatory therapy sessions, group sessions, the things that these criminals have to live with for the rest of their lives. We need to know more information about that. That's what I'm curious about, and ensuring that these people can't just walk away from that rehabilitation, because rehabilitation cannot happen in 4 years, especially with somebody like this who committed many crimes, and those are only the crimes that came to light.